Welcome to An Expansive Life conversation with results architect SANDE GOLGART. Your journey to realignment from fear to freedom starts now. Live an expansive life.
Good morning, everyone. Maybe good afternoon to those of you joining from the East Coast and other parts of the world. I'm SANDE GOLGART, your host, and I could not be more excited, but also slightly overwhelmed to share everything that I've learned throughout 2025. And the purpose of me sharing and doing this particular episode is I have learned so much by creating this passionate curiosity for life, for results, and for getting the results that we know that we want at the soul level for living. And I just thought, with everything that I've learned, what a great opportunity to share. But I'm not sharing from a place of saying, like, hey, look at me, this is the way to do this, but rather to share some concepts, some structures that have worked for me, that have allowed me to get the most out of this year for me in 2025. And I would confidently say that what I learned, what I internalized, what I integrated from the learnings into my life to reach this place of pure freedom, I've learned more in this year than I have in probably all 52 prior years, which to me says something. To me, that seems like this is something worth sharing. And my goal is that somewhere in here, there may be something that inspires you or triggers you at the soul level to say, for me, I want to explore that more. I'm not here to say I've found the way. One of the biggest things that I've learned is there is not one way of doing anything. There is your way, there's your path, and it has to be incredibly unique to yourself. And you have to find what works for you in where your soul is wanting, needing, and pulling you directionally so that you can have the most expansive life. So I'm going to share just the different things that I've learned. We're going to get into some theory. We're going to get into some integration, some experiences, and then we're going to kind of bring it full circle into how it can be applied, because the learnings without implication is just knowledge, and oversimplifying things without going through the experience of life is really kind of worthless. There's a great saying that I've been repeating to myself throughout the year, and that is simplicity on this side of complication is really kind of meaningless. You can hear a quote like, love is everything, love is the answer. And you'd say, well, what does that mean? And if you haven't gone through the complexity and touched the wall on the other side, you're really not in a position to even apply that simplicity. In fact, it can be very, very dangerous to oversimplify and try to live from something until you've gone through the complexity. So simplicity on the other side of complexity, that's priceless. And my aim today is to share with you what I've learned and then what I have simplified on the other side of complexity, because that has value. And as I say that, I want to really invite you all to ask questions today. If you want to challenge, anything, if you want to go deeper on a specific subject, this would be a great forum. We've got the next 60 minutes together, and it's going to be a pretty fun roller coaster, but I don't want you to just accept what I say. I'd love for you to listen for the things that really touch your soul, the things that speak to you, the things that spark some curiosity, and I'll get into why that's so important as we go through this. So we have an amazing hour. I could go on for 10 hours. I could literally speak about this probably 10 hours a day for the next month and not get through everything that I've learned, and how to apply it, how I've applied it in my life. And most importantly, how I've learned more about what living an expansive life really is. It's not so much about the things that you get to do. That's certainly a part of it. Remembering that you're a limitless, boundless soul. That's how we arrived, only to then fill our mind with a number of constraints, different identities, things that we try to live up to, which really start to shape our beliefs. And surprisingly enough, our beliefs are our biggest constraints. That probably sounds odd to many of you because what you believe shapes who you think you are. But when you really dive down and you go through the complexity and you arrive on the other side, you will see that those things that you believe, they're filled with limitations. You believe them because you've seen them. But a world of pure possibility, like pure potentiality, where you really are this limitless, boundless soul, has no limits. So your beliefs actually become, and they were the entire time, your constraints, or the things that have been holding you back. They're the things that the brain wants to cling to say, wait a minute, this isn't safe. This new realm of pure possibility, this might not be safe. And we'll get into how to manage the fear that your brain is trying to signal to you, which causes you to go too fast. It causes you to act from a state of fear, a state of survival. And if we're all very honest with ourselves, anytime we've done something that we look back on that we're not too proud of, a moment where we wish we could have done something different, even though you couldn't have done anything different because you didn't, they will 1,000% of the time come from the action you took, arrived from, or was triggered by a state of fear, a state of survival. So your need to survive generally causes you to move too fast, to protect the ego. In fact, your ego is driving most of your actions, and we'll get into this again. There's so much to get into, but the ego, always wants to be right. And being right is really the poor man's version of self-worth. So when we're living from a place of the ego, and not to say that the ego is bad, it can be actually beautiful and it can work for you in remarkable ways. But without the right level of awareness, your ego will be controlling your actions, bound tightly in your own limiting subconscious beliefs, and will cause you to just fall in a state of repeating the same patterns over and over and over again. Why? Because the brain thinks this is safe. We know it. It's familiar. But the familiar is anything but expansive. So, as I said, we have a lot to get into. We're going to cover a lot. I've got an announcement to make at the end. We're going to dive into this further in the next several sequential episodes that come out. Really dive into what I know that I'm here to do, which is help to liberate the souls of every human so you can step into that powerful world of freedom where you don't need anything. You're operating from a place of inspiration, not fear. Yeah. So again, I could talk for hours, but I do want to settle in, as we always do, with 3 really quick box breaths just to make sure that we've all arrived. We've all kind of neutralized our nervous system, and we can really be fully present. So on my count, I'm going to do a 4 count inhale. We're going to hold for 4, and we're going to exhale for 8. We'll do that 3 times. It'll take us less than a minute, but it'll significantly impact our ability to be present here together as we move forward. So on my count, we'll go in through the nose for 2, 3, 4, and we'll hold for 2, 3, 4, and then a big exhale. Let out all the stress. Go ahead and shake things out if you need to for 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And again, in for 2, 3, 4, 5. Oh, I went one more. And hold for 2, 3, 4. And exhale 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Okay, last one. In for 2, 3, 4. And hold 2, 3, 4. And then exhale 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Okay, now we've fully arrived. That was actually quite interesting. I had my phone buzzing at me during the first breath. I took one glance at it, and then you saw me go from a count of 4 to a count of 5. That is exactly what happens when we're not present. So fortunately, we had the other 2 breaths for me to catch up and get present, tuck my phone away, and turn it off so that I could be fully present with you all. But that is a great example for what happens when we're not present. What happens when we don't slow down? What happens when we start moving too fast and we get out of harmony with the way that nature and life is? We start putting things on autopilot. We stop feeling, and we just start doing for the sake of doing, to be busy. I had no reason to check my phone. It just buzzed, and the natural reaction was to look at it. And you can stop and think, how many things in your life are you doing just as a natural pattern where you're not fully present or aware? And how many things are you missing? How many miracles are you missing that are happening, all around us, in our body, in life in general, just because we're caught up in the patterns of everyday life? When those patterns are driven by fear, it causes us to even be more anxious to get out of this rest and recovery, this kind of more powerful state, and into this place of just doing, where we feel like everything is upon us to make it happen, which simply isn't the case. And it's one of the most powerful things that I've learned. So, welcome to the show. I'm going to start by outlining what 2025 was to me. I started this part of my journey, this realizing there was something significantly more available to all of us in the way that we're living life, about 5 years ago. So for those of you that don't, know my story or any part of it, I had taken some steps to clean up my diet. And I noticed that, I didn't notice, it was kind of smacking me in between the eyes. Anytime I drank a sip of alcohol, I started getting these migraine headaches. And I went to the doctor. Through a process of elimination, they said, we can't find anything wrong with you. The last step here is to go get a CAT scan and just make sure that there's nothing that we're not seeing that might be popping up. So I did that, somehow managed to meditate through the 30 minutes in this really constrictive tube. Got out, and I remember driving home, and I remember thinking, wow, this could come back one of 2 ways. Either find out that we're approaching the end of the road, or that we have nothing, but this is a signal of something. And I remember trying to kind of wrestle with kind of these life and death moments, like, what if it comes back and, it's not good news? And I kind of caught myself trying to justify the life that I had led. And I remember thinking about titles. I remember thinking about money, some things that I'd done, some people that I've met, and trying to convince myself that I everything is okay. And I remember being very blessed to be able to go back through and remember how extraordinary the life I had led to that point was. But in living in truth, I could feel, and I knew without a shadow of a doubt, that I hadn't emptied the tank. And what that started to reveal to me is that I I had become the best version of my limited self within the constructs of my own subconscious, the things that I had learned, trying to be a perfectionist, trying to not be human. But I'd never really fully tapped into the full self expression of who I really am. I'd never even tried to discover that. So at that point, as I'm driving home, I vowed to myself, however, this prognosis comes back, from this moment forward, I'm going to empty the tank. And today's call is all about, what does that mean? How do you do that? What are the things that I've learned? Again, not in trying to provide a one size fits all path for everybody, because probably the most significant thing that I've learned is everybody's path is as unique as the individual. So there are some things, some structures that have helped me that I'm going to share with you. I would invite you to try them if they speak to you. They can be life-changing. They can help you get out of some places that you may not want to be living in, some mental prisons that you can break down and escape and realize how truly free, how truly boundless, limitless, your potential is, not just in a pump you up kind of way, but truly, factually speaking, how limitless, you are, how limitless we are as human beings. So 2025 was about living from the soul. So I discovered there are three different energies. These are primary energies and perspectives from which we can live. And the first one is probably the least helpful, but we all find ourselves here from time to time. And anytime we have a story going on in our head, we're usually living from this place. So this would be called your victim's energy. And when we're viewing life through the lens of a victim, we're viewing it as though life is happening to me. It's because of all these external things going on that has me feeling the way I feel. It could be, the economy, could be who's in political power. It could be how your spouse is talking to you. It could be, how your boss is talking to you, how they're treating you. But we have this view that the external world is not the way I want it, therefore I'm not okay. And the ego and the brain says we're not safe. So what do we need to do to become safe? And we'll talk about this immediately following these three energies. The next energy that you can choose to live from or recognize is from the ego. So the ego's energy, this is generally coming from one of two things. This is coming from identities and your subconscious beliefs that I am not something good that we may have learned or you did learn, but I am not something good, right? Like, I am not pretty. I am not exceptional. I am not coordinated. I am not musically inclined. Whatever the I am not is, but it tends to be a little bit deeper than that. It's usually along the lines of I am not enough, right? I am not boundless and limitless. I'm filled with limitations. So the shadow, or kind of the darker side of that, is that I am something bad. That again, we've learned as we're growing up as kids. A lot of times it has, it's influenced by either the dogma of our religion, could be a teacher, our parents, all people who are doing the best that they can within the limits of their own constraints and their own level of awareness. They're not doing anything bad, but it's teaching us, and our brain is triggering, how can we fit in? What are the things we need to do to feel accepted, to feel safe? And as we're learning those behaviors, as we're learning those things, what we're really doing is we're bundling up lies, and then we're living from those lies. And again, the shadow side of that would be I am something bad. So some people actually might learn the lie that they're not good, that they are bad, that they're trash. And so that's the real shadow side of I am not enough, would say I am actually something bad. So from there, we're using force or we're using friction. So in the victim energy that I talked about earlier, that's a very powerless energy. You don't feel powerful at all. You feel like the external world's happening to you. So it's a very powerless state. It can lead to significant depression, can lead to a lot of ailments that will manifest in your body because you're out of control. You're not in control. And you just sort of resigned to the way the external world works. It's going to crash down on you, and your life's never going to be great. In fact, it's going to always be what it is because you're living from one of those, limited constraints. Then the ego gets involved. And this is where there's very little difference from, say, the person that lives in a penthouse and the person on the street begging for money. Somewhere along the way, they learned that they are not enough. So the one person goes out and says, okay, with force, I'm going to prove to the world that I'm enough. And I'm going to use force as a way to show everybody. And I'm going to culminate that by showing off my penthouse, my car, stacks of money, my jewelry, my watch, et cetera, et cetera. And that's where that, comes from. The person on the street may have learned the exact same thing, but learned it in a way that says, I'm trash, I'm not worthy. And so they just give up. From that victim mindset, they just say, what's the point? But it's just interesting. Those are just two different reactions to learning the same thing and choosing, how they will react to it. So from the ego standpoint, I just want you to feel into this. That's really starting to live from a place of force. This is something I recognized, I'd spent a lot of my adult life living from, and I'll get into the things that I learned, but you're living from a place of trying to force the outcomes you think you need to be okay. Could be job, title, money, cars, house, the things that are allowing you to pretend that you are finally good enough, right? Or finally enough. The problem is you'll never reach that destination. You'll never get enough of something that almost works, because when you reach the point you thought you were going to be happy, you thought you would realize that you're enough, you look around, you compare yourself to others, and you realize, oh shoot, there's a lot of other people on social media and everywhere else apparently having a lot more fun and more freedom. So I need to get a better watch, a better car, and you keep chasing this outcome that you'll never ever grab onto. So the third energy, and this can be foreign to most everybody on the call, so I'd invite you to just open your mind and sort of feel into this as I say it. But when you actually start living from the soul level, you actually start to remember that you've always been free. You start to remember that I am a boundless, limitless soul. We're all energy, and energy is boundless. It is limitless. You can't kill it. So from that perspective, you can actually start living from a place of knowing how amazing you are, how limitless, boundless you are, and start to realize not only you, but everyone is a boundless, limitless soul. From that perspective, you start allowing life to unfold. This allows you to be more in flow with life and start to pay attention to all the miracles, all the opportunities, the abundance, and all of those, fancy words that are available to you. And you can start getting out of the way and letting those things enter your life. So without using force, you're starting to allow beautiful, amazing things to happen for you. And you really can look around and start seeing how life is designed for us to have an amazing experience. It's only from the energy of living from the ego and living from a state of victim energy where we get in the way of what's meant for us and what's available to us. And then you have free will. So within each of these levels of energy, you certainly have free will to make choices. The problem is, and the limitation is, you only have free will within the limiting constraints of what you consider to be your opportunities. So if you live from a very limited perspective, you have very limited choices. When you're living from a place of force, you feel like your only option is to manipulate people to start acting the way you need them to act so that you can hopefully become okay. But when you step into the soul, when you're in that energy, you can start to really realize life can start to unfold and it can be amazing. And then you can step into limitless possibilities for how things can actually start really lifting you up, supporting you. You can start to see that everything is happening in your favor. Even the things that you thought, no way is this good for me. You can use one of the structures that I'm going to give you in a minute to really start to free yourself with every person you meet, every circumstance that you have in your life, to free yourself so that you're operating from a place where you don't need anything. And you can start to then define how you want to live your life, who you want to spend your time with, the things you want to do to help the world become a better place, whatever it is. But you start operating in your full purpose, and you're starting to live from a place of I choose to. You just cross out the I have to, I'm supposed to, I should have. Those things, those are all built from the ego. And they're usually built around, identities that we have. So in living from the energy of the soul, the thing that I learned the most out of this year is, from that standpoint, you really get to choose what is it that lights you up, what ignites you. What are you passionately curious about? Because the soul is here to grow. It's here to learn. It's here to grow. And that equates to mastery. So what skills have I been gifted that I can step into and start to master? And then how can I use those skills to start helping my fellow humans? How can I use it to help the world? How can I use it to help the universe become the place that I know that it is? And I can now be in flow with, nature. I can be in harmony, and I can live from this place of equanimity where nothing in the external world has any power over me to make me feel a certain way. So think about that, just how much more powerful that is. And I'll give you some specific examples of where I've been able to apply that and really see how powerful that can be. Because I believe most people are afraid of living from the soul because they think, oh, shoot, that's a powerless place, right? You think about, love and freedom, and many of the people that we see, are kind of dancing around in a park, almost, perhaps even without a home. And we're like, well, I don't want that. Like that's not what I want. I really do want to fully experience life. I want to use the energy of money to have an amazing life. I would love to travel, so we don't want to give that up. But I'd say that that's the biggest mistake, the biggest misconception. So when you truly step into living from the soul and you see that it comes from a place of mastery, one of my favorite examples of that would be Picasso. And, Picasso said that the purpose of life, or the meaning of life, is to understand your gifts. And then your purpose is to give those gifts away. So you never saw Picasso out trying to peddle, cheap art, trying to make a living. You saw him, this amazing person, master the art of painting. And he says it took him 4 years to learn how to paint like his mentor. So it took him 4 years to master the skills of learning how to paint, and how to paint like the person he aspired to be. It took him a lifetime to remember how to paint like a child. And that, to me, is such a beautiful expression of real mastery. You learn the skills, the details, the art form, and then you learn how to integrate that with your childlike self to make this, an amazing experience where you're just having fun with the expression of what you're creating. And I have had the unbelievable experience this past year of seeing how I was brought here to do this with my business and how to align with the help that I can provide to everybody else who's open to it by having gone through the complexity of getting there, touching the wall on the other side, and creating these very simple structures to help people free themselves so that they too can live from the soul and be on that journey of full expression, learning, and growth, right? Because the soul is here to grow. And I'd say I also believe that the soul, our souls, we're here to liberate ourselves, to become free, so that we're free to express exactly who we are. Stop living from, this place of trying to pretend to be something that we're not, so that we feel safe and that we feel accepted. So this is the first kind of teaching that I think is so really exceptional. So I would invite you to, again, open your mind and consider one of the most profound things that I learned throughout the year. I was at a retreat in Malibu, and we were talking about, how does this get so complicated? And so what happens is, as we're growing up, we learn, because our brain wants us to feel safe, we learn how to become accepted. So we start to pretend to be something. This might kind of blow your mind, but some of us pretend to be nice people. We're not nice people. We're just human. Like, humans do things that are not nice. We're afraid to embrace that side of ourselves. And so we pretend and we put on this veil that I'm a nice person. And inevitably, you can ask any human being, even serial killers, and they will tell you that they operate from the side of good. It's really quite fascinating. But that's because, we have created this identity, and our ego now looks for and scans for all the information to show and to prove that we're right. So when you have this identity, whatever it is, and many of us, certainly for me, I was wearing, 30 different veils of being a father, a husband, a friend, a past teammate, a boss, a peer, a community leader, community citizen. All these things, they all carry these expectations that come with it. And the ego is looking and scanning for all the evidence in the world to prove that you're right. And so if you're a nice person, it scans everything to show, that you're a nice person. It also will scan, if you are living from a victim's energy, all of the evidence it can collect to prove that you're a victim. So it really shows you how powerful the mind is, and the story, how powerful the story is that you're telling yourself. Because no matter what your story is, your ego is working to show you that you're right. Isn't that fascinating? So you might as well create the most productive, incredible story, in your mind. So from that, we started to learn and explore that no matter what your story is, no matter what words you're putting to it, it's a lie. Because you are just who you are. So if you can hang in there with me for a minute, I think you'll find this to be quite interesting. So if I'm identifying as whatever, my ego is then scanning the universe to show that I'm right. And then we create a strategy to keep that identity alive. So if you're ever wondering, why does life feel so exhausting? It's because you're living out a strategy produced by your ego to prove that you're right. You remember what I said earlier in the call, that we, when we're living from the ego, we are just trying to prove that we're right. And being right is the poor man's version of self-worth. So when you're trying to now live from a place of not being enough, and your ego is scanning all these things to now try to prove, and you're maybe chasing the fact that I'm going to prove that I am enough, you're living in conflict. So now it becomes exhausting, because no matter how many things you do and how many things you try to accomplish and accumulate, you will never prove that you're enough, because that's inherent from the very beginning, right? So if you go back to now living from the soul and you realize I am enough, I'm everything, I am a boundless, limitless soul, there is no conflict. We're just amazing. And you'll see and you'll realize that there's nothing wrong with anyone. And I'll repeat that. There's nothing wrong with anyone. So what anyone is doing, it's very easy for us to judge, criticize, and compare, but it's so unnecessary. And when you realize how unnecessary it is, that every interaction you have with another boundless, limitless soul is just that, they are acting in a way that is tied to their own limiting constraints and limited awareness. They're just doing the best that they can within the confines of their own limited self. And when you realize that, you can make space, and this is really what expansive living is all about to me. You can make space for it. You can have compassion. You can feel like somebody has it out for you. They're lying about you. They're saying awful things. But when you live in this world, like from the soul level, you realize they're just scared, right? They're living from a place of fear. They're living from a place of survival. And to survive, they need other people to think like, oh, he's a bad person, I'm nice. Let me tell you and let me show you, and I'll prove to my ego that I'm the nice person, this person is bad. And from there, you can look it down and you can say, I have all the evidence in the world to know that those words, like lies, stories, actions that people are trying to take to, cut you down, hold you back, pull you back, make you think that you're not enough. And again, this could be a really bad, toxic boss. This could be someone in the community. This could be a past friend. It could be, a spouse, an ex-spouse. It could be anything. But you'll start to realize it has no impact on me. It's just words. It's just vibration. They could be talking Mandarin Chinese. You don't even know what they're saying. And would it affect you at all? The answer is no. So when you get to that place, you realize everyone else is just being. I don't need a single thing in my external view, in the external world, to be a certain way for me to be okay. I'm freaking awesome. I came into this world a boundless, limitless soul. I learned a bunch of, shit that had me thinking I wasn't, but now I'm remembering that I am. And from that place, you can step into a level of freedom that can give you more joy for the way that life is than you could have ever imagined, living from the ego. So those are the three primary energies. There's the victim energy, again, very powerless. All these external things are happening to me. And from that place, and you might just sit with this for a second, you're stuck thinking that when the external world changes, when this person gets elected to office, when police start acting this way, when I make more money, I'll be okay. And that's a fool's errand from a victim standpoint, and a victim's energy that just doesn't serve you. So if you can accept that invitation and just start to slowly loosen the grip on that, start to make more room, start to zoom out to a bigger strategy for how you want to be, how do you want to feel, you'll see that those things just don't serve you. They're only detrimental to you living the life that you want to live. So then there's the ego's energy. Again, the ego is scanning, it's trying to, prove that you're right, that your belief is right. And that again is the poor man's version of self-worth. You'll never accomplish it. That's why you see so many billionaires, millionaires who are just very, very unhappy, because the way that they're relating to life is, as I get and accumulate these things and as the external world changes, I'm going to someday be okay. That day never arrives. But the really, and that again, that is a forced energy that has tons of friction. And it's the opposite of being in flow. Now you can be very, you know, accomplished with forceful energy. You just learn the art of manipulation. So you can manipulate your partner to act the way you think you need them to act. You can manipulate your employees, to work harder. You can manipulate them by making them think that they're not valuable enough and then watch as they try to prove their worth. But you're getting very manipulated, controlled, high heat kind of action, which makes nobody feel good. So there's no wonder why there's so much, quiet quitting in the workplace, because 99% of the world lives in this world of manipulation. And it's the only thing you have. When you need things to be different to be okay, you have to step into that manipulative energy. So again, it's very forceful, it's heated, it's hot, and from the ego, we're left with two different feelings, or two different sub energies, and that is fight and resistance. So when you're living from that, this would be when you're not okay with the way things are, you're not able to live in the present, you're driving really fast, you're trying to get somewhere, anywhere other than where your 2 feet are. That's from the ego. You're in resistance to the way things are. You're fighting with nature. You're fighting with your fellow humans. You're fighting for your point of view to be understood. So then if you step in and out of that, you can step into living from the soul, and from that place, you're okay with everything. You may want a different, more expansive life, but only from the place where you realize nothing else has to change. The change has to come from inside of me, how I relate to myself, how I am now willing to set boundaries, how I'm willing to protect myself, my energy, and not solve problems, but do what wise people do, is just avoid problems, step out of negative situations altogether, and let, narcissistic kind of behavior deal with itself, right? Just don't add any fuel to it. Step out into your own state of equanimity where you're okay with the way everything is. You can focus on mastery, mastering your own skill set, mastering yourself, your discipline, and put yourself in alignment with the future version of who you really want to be and how you want to feel and experience life. That is the best advice I think I could give to anybody, is learn how to step into that place, find a guide to help you get there, but step into that place where you're completely free. You don't need anything. You're not a victim of any circumstance. You're a powerful person living from your soul that is now able to declare what your mastery is going to be. And you can dive into doing the work, adding value, not being nice, just being human. Embrace all the human, aspects of yourself, even the parts that you feel like you didn't like for a long time. You can start falling in love with yourself and watch as those limitations dissolve and you step into this amazing place of power. So let me give you an example. Like as a sales rep, right? Sales reps can tend to be quite egotistical. Nothing wrong with them. They're just living in a world of their own limited constraints. They're living from a place of not being enough, and they're chasing commission, they're chasing high paychecks. They want promotion, they want power, but they haven't stepped into their soul, so they're living from a place of manipulation and selling. So from that place, they're trying to convince you with force to do what they want you to do so that they can feel better about themselves. They can be right. And we've all experienced that with a sales rep, right? We've all experienced, man, this person wants me to do this way more than I want to do it. Why is that? And now they're using fear as a primary motivator to say, hey, you might miss out. You might not have what everyone else has. And they're trying to tap into that part of your subconscious that says, maybe I'm not enough. Maybe I do need to act fast. Maybe I don't want to miss out. And they're trying to drive you to do something, force you to do something that is different from what your soul actually wants to do. And we all hate that, right? So think about how much you hate when a sales rep into taking action as opposed to letting you be and letting you decide from a place of inspiration that this is what you want to do. So if you're a sales rep, you're tuning into this call, this could be the most powerful thing that you can ever learn to do as you master the art of actual selling, which has nothing to do with forcing sales. So when you step into your power from a soul level, you create substantial value. You make sure that what somebody is going to pay me, they're going to get significant value. So for anybody who gives me $10, I'm going to make sure the value add returns 100. And now I'm going to show and demonstrate how that works. I'm going to lay all of this out, and then I'm going to let you make the decision and understand there's no right, there's no wrong, there's just consequences. And you can choose whether you want to live with the consequence of saying yes or the consequence of saying no. Mr. and Mrs. Prospect, it is totally up to you. I just want to do the best job I can in providing you the information so you can make a decision that you feel best about. And if I've mastered the craft of delivering value, or I'm working for a company that's aligned with adding value, you're no longer selling. You're offering value, information, and packaging in a way to allow someone to take whatever time they need to make the best decision for them, knowing that there's consequences to a yes and there's consequences to a no. Which consequence, are you most comfortable living with? And just leave it to them. That is a powerful way to live your entire life from, right? Think about that with relationships. Think about that with circumstances. Think about that with everything. And when you've started to master yourself, think about how your impact in the world, people will start choosing you because of the impact they know that you can make in their life. This is, again, one of the most powerful things that I learned this year, which is that people don't fall in love with another person. They don't fall in love with another circumstance. They don't fall in love with a job or a company. What they fall in love with, and this can be a really powerful thing that you can apply in your life, they fall in love with the version of themselves that they get to be when they're with you or around you. So who can you allow somebody to be? Think about, attracting the most amazing person into your life as a life partner. Imagine if what you're putting forth is someone so free that doesn't need anything. I don't need you to say anything, do anything, just be yourself. And then we can decide, do we want to be together or not? That's such a more powerful place to be, where you will get to be yourself, be totally free, and they will fall in love with the version they get to be when they're around you. Imagine your customers falling in love with the version they get to be when they put on your product, when they sign up and use your service. If you can start to think from that aspect, you'll become a significantly more powerful person, regardless of what you do, whether it's in business, whether it's in life, or anything. So this brings me to the next most powerful thing that I think I have really ever learned in my whole life. I went, for about 2 years, I did this really deep dive into Einstein. I had no idea why I was doing it. I was just really called to learn more about this fascinating individual. So Einstein he created, which everyone on this call is familiar with, but maybe not intimately familiar with, the theory of relativity. So the theory of relativity, it really comes down to this, right? The quality at which you experience life comes down to how you relate to yourself, to people, and to circumstances. So imagine the quality of your life comes down to how you choose and how you relate to people, circumstances, and yourself really starting first. So Einstein used this thought experiment, amazing thought experiment, and this is where he developed this entire theory. So space, time, and speed are all relative. So from that, what Einstein suggested was that two people could experience the exact same event differently from a place of relativity. So his thought experiment was somebody on a high-speed train traveling very fast towards the horizon could see two lightning bolts happen at the exact same time. Somebody on a fixed point on the ground could see those same two lightning bolts, one after another. When asked, one would say, I saw the two lightning bolts. They happened at the exact same time. The other person would say, well, that's not true. I saw them. One happened after another. So who's right? The reality is they're both right from their relative perspective. So now think about that. If you're living from the ego in a place of force and you're the guy on the train, you're going to spend your whole life trying to prove to everybody, no, you're wrong. You're wrong. I saw it. It happened at the same time. And the other person living from their ego is going to say, no, I saw it. It happened one right after another. So fill in the blank. It can be a political view. It can be about an event, how things unfolded. But what you can start to realize and expand your mind to make room for is your reality is only relative to your experience and how you have experienced life and your own level of awareness and your limited beliefs, right? Or your constraints. So from that perspective, you see life a certain way, I see life a certain way, but it's only relative to me. Nobody's lived my life the way I have lived it. So from there, you can make room for the idea that someone else can and has experienced life differently. So you can make room that they too are right. Now you can expand that out to 8 billion people that live in the world and start to realize that there are 8 billion different versions of reality. We can make room for all of it. So if you remember what I said, living from the soul level is about making room for the idea that the external world doesn't have to conform to me for me to be okay. I can make room for the idea that there are 8 billion different versions of reality, and I can be okay with that. And I can know that I can live from my own perspective to work on myself, take full responsibility for me, not worry about what anybody thinks, not worry about the lies that I've been telling myself, and step out of that and just be. Focus on me, focus on the things that are going to make me great, or allow my greatness to shine through. So that's another invitation. So from there, now that the awareness is there, now that we understand, like at a very high level, the theory of relativity and how it relates to the quality that we experience life from, I want you to consider this structure, which has made practical significance in the way that I have lived my life the last year. And that is when we understand life is presenting you with people and circumstances to show you where you're not free. So if I'm living from that theory of relativity, I can easily make room, right, for everybody. So why, when they act a certain way, do a certain thing, something unfolds, I get triggered? Why am I getting triggered? Why am I reacting to it? And you'll start to realize it's showing you where you're not yet free. And that can start to help you embrace a whole new world of possibility. And you'll step into this amazing place where nothing anybody does bothers you anymore. They're just being. And if they're being, and it may have been something you would have interpreted as something negative in the past, you can accept it as they're just living from a place of fear and survival, and start to have compassion for that person. You still set boundaries. You don't want them around you if that's the way they're acting. You don't want their energy close to you, but you can be okay with it. It doesn't have anything to do with you. So that can be, again, an extremely powerful place, to live from. So the last thing I want to leave you with are two things, and it's really just because we're out of time. I have like five pages of notes that we could dive into, and I will invite you. I have declared to help. We're creating. I'd love to help as many people as they can step into living from the soul level, step into freedom, leave behind all the fears and this need to control everything, so that you can have the most expansive, successful life possible, where your health will be your number one priority, relationships with the key people in your life, number two, as important as the relationship you have with yourself, and then wealth. You can literally create whatever you want, and you'll zoom out and start to see patterns and the ability to create significant value and create as much wealth and freedom as you want with minimal effort. And it is absolutely all possible. I can only say that because I've been through the complexity, struggled through all of this, trying to understand it and touch the wall on the other side. And now I have these very simple ways of helping people digest this, so that you don't have to spend the hundreds of thousands of dollars I spent on coaches, mentors, retreats and everything to really understand this. I can help guide you for $29 a month through this information, and then use these calls that we're going to create in the new year, so that you can jump in, express yourself, be seen, feel heard, feel safe, and start to step into the real you that you're remembering, who you are as you shed, all these other identities. So that's coming in the new year. It's going to be our Remembering Freedom community, wrapped around the concept of life peels, which is just peeling away the layers and identities or resistance between where you're at and the life you really want to experience. Only has to do with the resistance you've built up inside of you. So we'll work to help you remove that resistance and step into your full potentiality, your full life of possibilities. So here's the two things I want to leave you with. Let me know, if you want to dive deeper into this. And I see we have a comment. I'm going to click on my screen here to get to before we wrap up. But the two things are, I had this kind of come through me in a dream, and it showed me this spiral. It's the Fibonacci spiral, kind of similar to what you see here. It happens all throughout nature, but you can use it to move out. So the center of that tightly wound spiral, that's the victim energy. That's where everything's happening to you. You need to control the external world. As you expand outward, you can start moving into the ego, right? Like, okay, maybe I'm not enough, but I can take action. I can create some things, but I'm doing it with force, and expand all the way out to finally stepping into living from the soul. And you can see how you relate to your circumstances at each point of that as you live in this more expanded awareness. So we're going to create a whole workshop tool to help people. It's actually already been created. We're going to start using it to help you step into that. So if you're interested, feel free to reach out to me. You can DM me, or you can reach me through my website at sandegolgart.com. And this is such a fascinating tool for helping you develop the awareness you need to step into this and live completely free, the rest of your life. Then the last thing is that stepping into a world of full responsibility, where you know that I'm simply responsible for me. Think of all the times when you've wanted to help other people. That's usually a signal and a mirror to let you know you need to help yourself. So a lot of us want to deflect and go help everyone else. I'm here to tell you that is just a pattern of living from a place of not enough, and you're wanting to help other people, which makes you feel better, but you've not tapped into your pure potential. And that is a good signal to know that you have a lot of room to step into a place of pure freedom. So from there, you can actually find your own harmony, how you can live in tune, in step with nature, your own rhythms, your own pace. Each one of us has a unique pace, but we live in a world of manipulation that's telling us all the time, you're not moving fast enough. You're not doing enough. You're not. And we're reacting to that, right? From the ego, we're like, oh, shoot, I got to move faster. I got to do more. I got to wake up at 4 a.m. I got to stay up all night. I got to drink coffee. I got to drink Red Bull. I got to keep pace. Can you see how exhausting life becomes when you're not living from that powerful state of the soul? When you live from that powerful state of the soul, you'll realize, like your own constitution, you'll enter a place where you understand your own rhythms. You'll understand what you're really good at, where your mastery can help you, which will allow you to step into full freedom, full world of possibilities. I guess I'll just leave it at that, but know that that is available to you to step into. And if that is speaking to you at all, as you look at the new year, I would invite you to look at this new community that we're building, and the Remembering Freedom community. It's going to be, life-changing. All right, let me step up here and grab the comments. So good. Dan, thank you. I appreciate you joining. It's not really a question. I love the comment. So good. I guess I would just echo that, so good. That would describe my life in 2025. If I had experienced my life in 2025, 5 years ago, I would have labeled it would have been a disaster. Like if I wrote out the things that happened and I didn't know how to step out of the victim energy, the ego energy, into my soul's energy, I may, who knows where I would have finished this year. But I can honestly say, by stepping into this living from the soul, which I've learned from all three of my big mentors, David Meltzer, Jesse Itzler, and Peter Crone, they've all been incredible mirrors for how to live from the soul to create really incredibly successful businesses, live on your own terms, live on within your own non-negotiables, and step into the expansive life that you know that you deserve. And then step into and define and realize what harmony is to you. And when you're living in harmony, man, everything just flows. Like, I can't even remember really the last time that I was triggered by what somebody else did. And if I was, it was very brief. I just stepped into that structure I shared with you on where is this person or this circumstance showing me that I'm not free. And man, that curiosity allows you to dive in and really say, like, what is it about me that has a problem with the way this person acts? Because it does have nothing to do with me. Why am I reacting to it? And you'll step out of this world of reacting and into this world of responsibility, where I'm just responsible for myself. Literally, what anyone else does, what they say, how they act, has nothing to do with me. And I want to then inspire people where my message resonates with them to step into this world with me and work with the people that I love working with, and not care about anyone that's not for. That's totally okay. They can live their life. They can do whatever they want. If they feel the need to to, judge it, shame it, that's on them. Like, it has literally nothing to do with me or this community. So that's really kind of an amazing place, and it really allows you to step into this wonderful world where you're allowing your amazing life to happen for you, not the need to go force the life you think you want, which you will only wake up to understand. That was never the game to play. So no matter how hard you tried to master manipulation, no matter how hard you tried to force certain outcomes, it'll never be enough. It's the most unfulfilling way to live life from a place of force. So with that, I'll close out and just invite you to step into a world of freedom. Please reach out to me for any help that I can provide. We're going to provide so many free resources, then resources that are at an incredibly affordable price, and then some amazing experiences to allow you to integrate them with some hikes and other adventures that are they're phenomenal, off the charts. I did 4 of them last year and learned how to move from a place of judgment to joy, which I later learned was such an unbelievable life skill. Imagine anything you're judging, anything you're hating, to be able to move to joy and happiness. That is also available to you, and it'll allow you to step into such a more powerful place to live from. So with that, I know we're out of time. I love every one of you. I appreciate you spending the time with me. It's not lost on me that there are any number of infinite possibilities of where you could spend your time. You've chosen to spend it here for the last hour. I'm tremendously grateful for that. And anything I can do to help any one of you, please let me know. So thanks for tuning in. Look forward to 5 more episodes similar to this as we unlock the secrets of this process to step into freedom and learn to live a more expansive, more welcoming life for everybody. All right, with that, I'm signing off. Thank you again. It's Sandy Golgart at sandegolgart.com, or you can find me on LinkedIn /Sandy Golgart, or on Instagram at Sandy Golgart. Thank you so much for tuning in. Have an amazing week. Welcome to freedom, my friends.
Thanks for watching An Expansive Life Conversation. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. See you next week.